Today, we're diving into the story of New France, and it all starts with a pretty wild what-if. What if you went looking for a shortcut to Asia, but accidentally found an entire continent instead? Well, that's not a hypothetical. It's the incredible, true story of the French in North America.
I mean, just think about that for a second. This very question is the engine behind so much of our history. It's the idea that one simple mistake, one wrong turn, can lead to something unbelievably huge and world-changing. And it's right at the heart of the story we're exploring today.
You see, for the French, the plan was never to build a new world. Nope, they were looking for a fast lane to the riches of the old one. But what they stumbled upon was something so much bigger, a vast continent that would completely change their history. And ours.
All right, so how does a mistake this huge even happen? Well, it all kicks off with this massive obsession that had a grip on pretty much every kingdom in Europe. We're talking about the frantic, high-stakes race for a shortcut. And a grand prize in this race had a name: the Northwest Passage. For years, Europeans were totally convinced there had to be this secret river, this kind of magical sea route that just sliced right through North America and popped you out in Asia right next to all the silken spices. If you found it, oh man, you'd bypass all your rivals and your country would become insanely rich. It was, no joke, the 16th century space race. So this obsession is what sent French ships sailing into totally unknown territory. They started charting the coastline of this enormous landmass, battling these crazy storms and freezing waters. And the whole time they were just crossing their fingers, hoping it was some skinny little island they could get around in a hurry.
I mean, try to put yourself in their shoes. It's 1524, you're Giovanni da Verrazzano, and you're the first European captain to sail into what we now know as New York Harbor. Wild, right? Then, 10 years later, you've got Jacques Cartier, and he's pushing his way up the massive St. Lawrence River. He asks the local Iroquois people, hey, what do you call this place? They say Canada, which just means village. Well, Cartier kind of mishears it, and boom, just like that, a whole country gets its name, Canada.
But here's the kicker. All these amazing trips, back home, they were seen as total failures. Why? Because they didn't find any gold, no spices, and definitely no shortcut to Asia. So the dream just died. And for almost 60 years, France basically forgot North America even existed.
But then, after all that time, a new guy shows up on the scene, a man with a totally different idea. He wasn't just going to change the mission, he was going to change history. And he'd eventually be known as the father of New France. His name was Samuel de Champlain, and listen, this guy was not like the others. He wasn't looking for a get-rich-quick scheme. He was a visionary. He looked out at all those forests and rivers and saw something more. He saw the beginnings of a new society. He was the one who said, hey, France needs to stop just visiting and actually start building something here.
And his plan? It was so simple, it was brilliant. Step 1, build something that lasts. So in 1608, he sets up a permanent fort at Quebec, a place that's easy to defend. Step 2, make friends. He knew they couldn't do it alone, so he formed these really crucial alliances with native nations like the Huron and the Algonquin. And step 3, use those new friendships to push deeper into the continent and find something, anything, that could actually make this whole project pay for itself.
So what was the secret ingredient that was going to finally make New France profitable? It wasn't gold, it wasn't spices, it was a beaver.
Yep,
the humble beaver.
It's pretty funny when you think about it. The dream was this epic shortcut to Asia. The reality that actually paid the bills? Thick, waterproof beaver fur for hats. It was beaver pelts, not pepper or silk, that became the real moneymaker for New France, all thanks to a fashion trend happening thousands of miles away in Europe.
And I know what you're thinking. Beaver hats? Seriously? But you have to understand, a waterproof beaver felt hat in Paris back then, that was like a brand new sports car or a super expensive watch today. It was the status symbol, and the demand was absolutely insane. That one trend turned the forests of North America into a literal gold mine for France. Okay, so who were the people on the ground doing all this work? They were these legendary guys called the coureurs de bois. That's French for runners of the woods. And they weren't soldiers, they were more like adventurers, entrepreneurs. These guys would paddle canoes for thousands of miles, learn native languages, live out in the wild for months at a time. They were the connection, the crucial link between European goods and American furs. They were the heart and soul of the entire operation.
Now, this whole fur trade thing wasn't just about the money. It was like rocket fuel for exploration. The more beaver hats people wanted in Europe, the deeper the French had to go into the continent to find more furs. It just pulled them further and further into the unknown.
So they followed the rivers, which were like the highways of the time, and that's how they pushed into the Great Lakes. Then, in 1673, you have a priest, Marquette, and a trader, Joliet. They're canoeing down the upper part of the Mississippi River, and they figure out something huge. It flows south to the Gulf of Mexico, not west to the Pacific Ocean. That discovery sets the stage for 1682, when this one really ambitious guy, La Salle, decides he's going to follow that river all the way to the end.
Just imagine being La Salle for a second. You've been on this brutal, dangerous journey for thousands of miles, and then, finally, you feel the river currents start to slow down. You taste salt in the water, and you see it. The Gulf of Mexico opens up right in front of you. You actually did it. You connected the Great Lakes all the way to the Southern Ocean.
And right there, standing at the mouth of this giant river, La Salle makes one of the boldest claims in history. I mean, it's just incredible. He basically says that the entire Mississippi River basin, that means every single river and stream that flows into it, all of it now belongs to his boss, the King of France.
And he gives this massive territory a name, Louisiana, in honor of his king, Louis XIV. We're talking about a chunk of land that stretched from the Appalachian Mountains all the way to the Rockies. It covered almost a third of what is now the United States. On paper, France just claimed an empire that was bigger than France itself.
So let's recap. A failed search for a shortcut leads to a beaver fur empire, which leads to this absolutely gigantic land claim. But, so what? Why does any of this old history matter to us today? Well, it turns out the footprint of New France is literally all around us.
You probably don't even notice it, but you see this legacy every single day. It's right there in the names of our cities. Detroit, which means the Strait, St. Louis, New Orleans. It's in the French language still spoken in Quebec and Louisiana. It's shaped our laws, our food, our buildings. Heck, they gave us the first real maps of the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River. This isn't just dead history. It's still very much alive.
So the next time you're just looking at a map or even walking around your own city, take a second, look a little closer, and maybe ask yourself what parts of my world were built on some old forgotten dream. And more importantly, what amazing new things are still out there, just waiting for someone to stumble upon them by mistake?